All right, howdy, folks. Meteorologist Seth Bohnhoff here. Just checking in with a little severe weather coverage on this afternoon. Before I get too deep into things here, I just want to make sure that folks can hear me. One of the reasons I was just a little behind here on hopping on the stream is because we've just got a few technical difficulties. A little software here in the back just kind of acting a little funny here. So I just want to make sure that folks can hear me per usual and that we're still looking good here on our side of things on the tech end. So that way we can kind of move things forward here, but wasn't entirely sure if I'd be able to do a stream or not based on the stuff I was seeing. So anyone who's early to the show here, just mind let me know in the chat real quick if you can hear me. And if so, we will kind of dive here into the coverage on this Sunday afternoon. It looks like audio is all good according to Nick there. So keep an eye on that, but I'm just going to dive into things if that's the case, and it looks like we are in good shape. For the folks hopping on in here, I want to tell you right now, some of you may be wasting your time a little bit. There is one storm in the area, a single storm at the moment, but it really is the only one that's got a real chance of doing much here for us right now. It is right there around the Springfield area. So if you're somewhere in Champaign, Bloomington, out in Danville, there's no real imminent threat right now. There's not a whole lot to pay attention to. But this storm definitely has enough on it that I wanted to at least be able to track it and let the folks know in that area kind of what was going on. And, of course, like I said, just a little behind hopping on just with some of those technical difficulties. But Springfield, the city itself, probably taking a little bit of a hit right now from this severe storm, kind of the core of that storm somewhere between Springfield and Sherman right now. Probably some pretty good hail in there at times and obviously some pretty heavy rain in there as well. So keeping an eye on that, but that's why we hopped on here this afternoon, because obviously a pretty populated city in the area needs to stay up to date on what's going on there within this storm. Here's a view from our sky cam in Springfield. We're looking just to the northwest right now, and obviously you can't see a whole lot. We're kind of in the main core of that storm, or at least on the southern end of it, and plenty of rain, plenty of heavy rain, some strong winds. I believe this is warned for 60-mile-an-hour winds, and I believe golf ball-sized hail at the moment on last check. I'm going to peek at that again over here on the side just to make sure that we are relaying that correctly. But that is what we're dealing with here right now. And that is correct. Last check, hail of 1¼ inches in diameter. So if you're in Springfield, kind of the Sherman area, this is probably what you're seeing right now. Overall, pretty low threat day as a whole, but mention the fact that one of these storms, maybe just one or two total, could get severe status, and that is the case here. And of course, heading right towards one of our more populated regions in the area. So let's take a look again at radar, just kind of specifically hone in on what's going on. The severe thunderstorm warning is in effect all the way until, I believe, let's take a look here to make sure. Yes, it is set to expire at 4:30. So we'll be tracking this one for at least the next 20 minutes or so. Overall, level of concern, not very high with these storms today. If you've been listening to any of the broadcasts over the last couple of days, you probably heard me talk many times about how today's setup really isn't super supportive of big-time severe weather, but there may just be a couple of storms that pulse up there for a brief moment and bring that severe thunderstorm warning to it. Now, what's unique about this one is the fact that you kind of see the reddish-orangish outline here on the box, which is a little unusual. You don't see that with your standard severe thunderstorm warnings. This technically has a tornado possible tag on it. I'll admit things didn't look horrible at one point on the rotation side of things, but I think the most recent scans have kind of toned that down a little bit. You can kind of see here in this general area, maybe there is some sort of broad rotation happening there just east of Springfield there along 72. It's nothing really too concerning. As mentioned, scans earlier, I kind of showed it a little better. But there is some support that, yeah, there is some broad rotation, but you can have rotation even in storms that are nowhere close to producing a tornado. So just something to monitor and keep track of as this storm kind of slowly pushes to the south and east. Maybe a problem for it's kind of going to thread the needle between Decatur and Taylorville. So some places up and down 51 there may have to deal with that. So kind of just watching down the line, places like Moweaqua, Assumption, maybe in line for that storm at some point in time. And so for those who are just now tuning in, I want to reset things here just real fast, just so folks kind of know what's happening. Chances are where you're at right now, it's pretty sunny. It's been a nice day. I kind of encourage folks this morning to go out, enjoy the day, because it's going to be an awesome one of the nicer days we've had in some time. And that is the case. Look all across the area. We've got one tiny little storm in effect right now. We do have a couple of those little pop-up storms maybe around Livingston County, but not a whole lot else along that line in between them. So there's lots of places that don't have to worry about much right now. We're, of course, watching those little cells up that direction to make sure that they don't pop up real quick and get out of control or anything. But I'm telling you, places like Champaign, Mattoon, Charleston, Effingham, really nothing to worry about right now. Danville is included in that as well. So if you're anywhere kind of near those locations I just rattled off, not a real imminent threat for anything here right now. Just wanted to pop on and cover this one storm that did have and still does have a tornado possible tag on it. And of course, that is just outside the Springfield area. But even since I hopped on the stream here, just kind of the overall structure of the storm has kind of flattened out, gotten a little messy. I'll even back this up a little bit to when this storm was kind of at its peak. We had just before 4 o'clock, kind of a little bit of a clearing in here that suggested maybe there was some of that more fine rotation happening. Even had some pink colors there on reflectivity, which suggests either really intense rain or more likely some hail that was being picked up there by the radar. I believe this, again, was warned at one point for golf ball size hail. Not sure what the highest confirmed hail has been at this point. Just want to take a look here in the chat that we have with the National Weather Service, see if anything's been relayed as far as that goes. And it does not look like we have anything too big right now. Getting reports of penny to maybe marble size hail, so pretty standard stuff. If anyone in the Springfield area or just kind of the Sangamon County area has seen any kind of hail there, just kind of let us know what you're seeing in general, whether it's just lightning, heavy rain, hail, strong winds, anything like that. We'll, of course, be happy to take your reports and relay them along in the event that we, of course, need to there. But yeah, this is the only storm we have in the area. So just kind of wanted to hop on, keep track of this little thing, and maybe keep an eye on some of the others that would pop up there with some time. But again, the overall level of concern, not very high. It would have, it did take a lot here for us to hop on a stream just because today was pretty low threat day. Not that we don't want to keep those people covered, but if it was just going to kind of be one of these flat standard storms, didn't want to raise too much alarm bells here with us hopping on. But this one did warrant definitely some talking about here. Definitely a lot easier to talk to you folks as opposed to just kind of relaying things along via posts there online. So still watching this one. Let me check and see what the motion on this one is. Does not appear to be going too fast here. This one is moving east at 45 miles an hour. So if I kind of get my tools straightened out here real quick, I can kind of track that out and get some of the folks in the path of this a little more informed about who could be in line for it here in just a moment. That's kind of got a little bit of a southeast track to it, so I'll probably just let it go on from the warning polygon it's in right now. Just take it out for the next half hour or so, see some places that are also in line for this. Again, this doesn't appear too concerning at the moment, definitely not as concerning as it did at one point in time. Let me move that around a little bit so that way I'm not standing in the way of the places on the list there. But we've got the entire list right there, including the time of storm arrival as well. So just keep in mind that storm. And I was going to say something about that rear storm there, the one on the backside, about how it probably is starting to take over a little bit just because it's got some more clearing down to the south and east of it. And that's exactly what just happened. Looks like the southern half of Sangamon County now has a new severe thunderstorm warning for a kind of separate storm on the back end of this first one. We'll check out the numbers on that one to see. Probably very similar warnings. We've got 60-mile-an-hour winds on that one and quarter-size hail, but also that red, kind of faint reddish orangish outline suggests there is a tornado possible on that one as well. So let's just kind of dive in and take a look at the velocity here on this one. Kind of tells a similar story based on the storm relative velocity, just kind of double checking there on your base velocity too. So kind of watching that one, not too terribly concerned about it right now, but the fact that that one is kind of off on its own can kind of take in some of the heat and the moisture in the atmosphere. That one has a better chance of kind of taking over, being the more dominant of the two storms here. So technically 2 severe thunderstorm warnings out there right now as we are just about to get to 4:15 on this Sunday afternoon. And I'll be taking a look at some of your questions as well, because I'm sure there's probably a handful of confused folks who are outside enjoying a nice sunny day, and all of a sudden they see an alert pop up on their phone that we're gone live here on our streaming services. Right now, across much of the area, looks like we do not have a whole lot happening. A couple of more pop-up storms up there to the north, kind of along that cold front. Looks like things are not kind of uniformly popping up here. Talked about the fact that this cold front didn't really have a whole lot of lift to it. So we'll be watching some of those other pop-up storms up that direction, but obviously the attention is here around the Springfield area, eventually heading on into Christian County, parts of Christian County, eventually maybe even into the Kincaid and Taylorville areas there at some point. But you can kind of just tell this storm, just kind of one big mess at this point that western side of it kind of wants to start taking over a little bit. And you can see a little potential notch there on that western storm as well that we will be continuing to monitor as well. So again, if you want to kind of let us know what you're seeing right now, if you are in this area, what's happening. What I'll do here real quick too, since I haven't taken a look at it here in just a second, is pull up the Springfield camera. And we are still looking off to our north there, so we probably want to angle that off to the east. It looks like the main core of the storm has passed through the Springfield area, of course. Making sure I'm getting my bearing straight here and I'm not looking due south. I kind of got myself a little crossed up. It's mostly passed through the Springfield area, so we were looking south there. Let's angle that back to the east. And you're not going to see much here on the back end of this storm anymore, of course, with it having passed through town. But there's the view, the best view we can get you here right now. I want to also probably look at the Decatur camera here in just a moment. Not that it's an imminent threat that direction, but maybe the next best view of the storm based on where it's heading. So let me get that one popped up and get that angled the right way. I think we're looking northeast on that one right now. Got a couple of questions just about places that need to watch out for any sort of severe weather right now. Again, didn't want to kind of alarm folks here by hopping on with this coverage, but this is a very isolated event. There's not a whole lot of places that need to be concerned about any sort of storm activity right now. But the areas that do, kind of just the Sangamon, Christian County areas right now, that's the only spot where we're seeing some storms at the moment. And even that being said, these storms kind of just look a little messy right now. We'll check back in on velocity here real quick and see if there's anything noteworthy happening within it. Again, there's some broad signatures, but that's pretty likely within any of these kind of cellular storms that you have rotation just in general. Just because you see a little bit of it on their radar doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything too imminent. But obviously something to pay attention to and watch with any of these storms. Not the best day for tornadic storms or rotating storms, but if one was going to happen, it was going to kind of happen here along the I-55 region where there was just a little bit more spin in the atmosphere, so to speak. But even then, kind of not really a day for any of that. But that's why we're here. The warnings do have that tornado possible tag, so we are paying very close attention to that. What I want to do here is pop up the hail size version of our radar and kind of see if there's anything that radar is picking up as far as that hail is concerned. Looks like all below quarter size. This one says 0.6 of an inch, so somewhere between penny and nickel sized is what that would be. Other than that, on this west storm, just kind of that dark gray color, which is maybe no more than a penny size hail. So not picking up a whole lot there on that particular product. But of course, folks still dealing with some stronger winds here in kind of the Springfield and parts south of town there. Maybe Chatham in on the action here at some point as that western storm starts to move on in. So just kind of watching this cluster here. The fact that there's not a whole lot else popping up and down in a line here kind of suggests, and you might be able to assume that on your own, that there's not a whole lot of organization here with these storms. There's just enough in a spot or two to maybe allow for some of these storms to pop up there very briefly, but haven't seen a rapid increase in intensity here in a while. And continuing to track what National Weather Service is saying about any sort of reports, and it doesn't sound like anything too terribly eventful is happening. But of course, better be safe than sorry. That's why we are here. And just kind of watching things and monitoring to see what all is happening in the area. There are no sort of severe watches in play right now. I will show you where there are severe thunderstorm watches. They are outside of the area, well off to our west. So that kind of is enough to tell you right there that there's not a whole lot of confidence there's going to be big, widespread storms at any place here in the area. They're just kind of watching for those isolated storms that are kind of behaving the way the ones are right now. Usually the only time you get those watches is when there's pretty good confidence that there's going to be at least kind of 2 or 3 or at least an area that needs to watch out for any sort of severe storm activity. You don't need a watch in order to get a warning, of course. The watches are just kind of reserved for when there's events that maybe become a little more widespread, which is not exactly the case that we have right now. So that's why probably caught a few folks by surprise. If you looked at your phone and saw there was severe thunderstorm warning, you usually expect a watch before the warning, but not always the case, not always how it has to go down there as we are seeing right now. It is about 20 minutes past 4 o'clock here on this Sunday afternoon, and we are continuing to track. I'll call it two storms, kind of one big mess here, and it's starting to move down 72 into parts of Christian County, maybe eventually into Macon County. Looks like things may just kind of stay on the southern end, so I don't think at this point in time Decatur has too much to worry about. So we will continue to check on that. Let's get another look at your velocity here and see if there's any sort of activity going on. And again, at this point, you're just kind of seeing maybe just a little bit of a change in the wind direction within these storms. Don't even want to really call that a rotation. If it is, it's super broad here right now. And that storm to the west, the one that has probably a better ability to see any kind of rotation, even it's kind of lacking in that department right now. You can kind of see the contrasting colors a little bit, but they're all very dull colors, the dull green, the dull kind of maroonish looking red. That indicates that there's not a whole lot of that strong rotation in the storm right now. So again, this stuff is pretty baseline severe weather caliber storms right now. That's why, again, I didn't want to kind of raise too many alarm bells by hopping on here. But with those tornado possible tags, of course, you want to be safe as opposed to late to the show there, and sorry that you didn't hop on any sooner. There is some activity up here to the north, not severe right now, but I'll pop on the lightning. Probably getting a little bit of that lightning near the Pontiac area right now, and just kind of parts up there to the north. Maybe you can see it in parts of McLean County and, of course, Livingston County as well. But that stuff kind of in its early stages. Don't think there's too much to worry about with those, but we'll kind of take a peek inside. Again, stuff is pretty flat right now, but might be seeing some heavy rain within some of those storms, but that is pretty much it as far as those go. That's why our greater concern right now is just with those two warned storms in the Springfield area now, kind of south and east of the Springfield area, and continuing to kind of pick the National Weather Service's brain, see what they are going to do as they go forward with these storms. I wouldn't be shocked at all, of course, if they kept these severe thunderstorm warnings going once these current ones expire. Not too sure about whether or not they would keep a tornado possible tag. Not seeing a whole lot right now. That's not to say that it can't pulse up again at some point, but at this stage in the game, it sure does not appear that there's anything too out of control to where they would continue those on. But we'll, of course, pay attention to that. That call is, of course, their call. And it's just all speculation based on what I'm seeing right now. On some of these warnings, we've got that top warning, the original one. That one is set to expire at 4:30. So that one's only out there for the next 8 minutes. So we'll see what the decision is on that. The western one, or the second one, this one right here, that one is set to expire not until 5 o'clock. So that one, we got a little bit longer to kind of wait on that. So that is what we are tracking with some of that. Let's toss up lightning onto these storms. There's a decent amount of electricity in the air. This is the kind of day, yeah, it's a little warm. Temperatures were in the low 80s. We had some moisture here in the area, but it really wasn't really wasn't a day you were expecting anything too big or out of control with some of these storms. But if you were kind of outside enjoying the day, definitely caught you by surprise there. Definitely want to stay inside for as long as there is some of that lightning, of course, and plenty of heavy rain within that as well. Let's just check here real quick, since it's another thing to look at some of the rainfall that has been produced out of these storms. And we'll let that load here real quickly. And you can see kind of some of those green spots where the core of the storm was at, probably well over an inch in some of those spots, if not maybe closer to 2 inches. So about 1.25 inches just north of the Springfield area. Same situation as you head on closer into Menard County. So maybe some quick little bouts of an inch of rain or so. And of course, that is in a very isolated zone. And not going to be too much of a widespread problem here for many of us in the area. So another check of your radar here. Just want to back things out and reset again here before I get too far ahead of myself. If you are just tuning in, or maybe been watching for the last couple of minutes, haven't been able to see the lay of the land right now, there's not a whole lot happening here in the area. The main reason we're on is because we had some severe thunderstorms move right through the Springfield area, obviously a very populated area. They also have a tornado possible tag on them, so we just want to make sure that we are keeping folks aware and informing them of what all is happening. But the vast majority of the area, about 85 to 90% of you, are still just enjoying a nice sunny day. Maybe there's some clouds out there right now with those storms moving on through. But if you are in the Champaign area, Mattoon, Charleston, somewhere in Bloomington, up there in Gibson City, Danville, Effingham, there's nothing happening right now. There's nothing likely to happen within the next hour at the very least. There's probably not much happening here across the area based on what we're seeing with some of these storms. I'll even show you all real quick on future track. Actually, before I do that, let me just check in on these storms again, make sure that there's nothing alarming popping up here within some of these storms. Again, you kind of got a little bit of a change in wind direction within that northeast one. The southwest one, not seeing a whole lot. Maybe there's some broad rotation here and there, but nothing that really raises the concern too much. I want to pop up future track just to show folks what we are expecting here for the rest of the nights. This may end up being the one severe storm here that we see in the area, because this particular future track, the one that refreshes every hour, it's not got a whole lot out there, not got a whole lot there in your forecast. So maybe another storm or two popping up in the night, but it wouldn't be anything that is too out of control there, or even severe for that matter. We'll show you another model. I'm not 100% sure if its most recent update is complete or if this is old data. Looks like this might be a little old, but there's a few future tracks that indicate maybe there's another storm or two that could pop up here into the night. But you can kind of tell, hopefully based on the tone of presentation, not a huge level of concern with any of these storms. They're likely to, in fact, weaken as they continue on into the area. It's not for a lack of fuel. It's warm out. It's a little muggy out, not as horrible as we've seen it in the past. But there's not a lot of what we call wind shear, not a lot of things to organize those storms. They can form quickly, but there's a thing in play that has to kind of keep them organized so that way they don't rain into themselves. They don't weaken themselves on their own. And we're kind of seeing that's happening right now, to where these storms aren't able to support themselves. So yeah, they're severe for a moment, but then they come down in intensity and they don't really recover from that. So a lot of the time with our big setups, you do have that high wind shear, the ability for those storms to keep themselves together and continue on and even strengthen. Not really the case with these, and you can kind of just tell based on the radar image that neither one of these storms have really gotten all that much stronger. Still probably able to carry 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts in them, maybe some small hail as well. But even just kind of zooming in here, you don't see the pink colors that you saw at one point in time. So not as much of a concern there for the hail. Maybe just kind of some straight line winds right now. You can kind of see a little bit of a kind of bowing line that may indicate some of those stronger winds. And you can even see that here if we pop up velocity. But even then, lots of dull greens and dull reds. So not anything that is imminently worrisome here for many of us. But of course, if you are in these areas, your sunny Sunday afternoon has all of a sudden turned has not turned out the way, I should say, that you wanted it to here, as things have gotten just a little stormy. But even then, just hold out for a little bit and things will kind of improve themselves as we move on ahead. So it is about to turn 4:28 on our studio clock here. And that means that this Eastern warning is 2 minutes away from decision time, whether or not they decide to continue that or cancel it. And we'll look and see here if they will continue it. We'll see if the National Weather Service is going to change anything with that. And it doesn't look like I have anything to confirm or deny whether or not that'll be continued, but we'll kind of keep track of that. Again, on the stream here, because these storms had that tornado possible tag on them at one point. But in the event that these storms kind of continue to look flat and they maybe don't carry out one of the warnings, we may kind of just try to wrap things up here, because again, not the biggest threat in the world here today. We just wanted to hop on as those storms are moving through the Springfield area and had that tornado possible tag on them. It looked a little troublesome at one point in time, maybe no longer quite as worrisome as what it was before. So kind of just playing the waiting game to see what they will decide to do there with some of those warnings. And again, if you're anywhere being impacted by some of these storms, let us know in the chat. Just kind of let us know what you're seeing, what things are like where you are. But chances are, like I said, 85 to 90% of you probably just having a nice, pleasant, sunny day, just kind of a nicer way to wrap up the weekend here, not worrying about wildfire smoke for once, not worrying about things being cloudy and dreary. Finally, an actual day to get out there and enjoy if you are not seeing any of these storms here in the area right now. We'll also toss back on the lightning on these storms. And you can see that one just directly over Chatham right now. Kind kind of these duller lightning bolts are older indications that there was lightning. The brighter ones indicate the more recent ones. So you can kind of tell there's not a whole lot of electricity in that rear storm. And a lot of times the lightning is able to tell you how much strength the storm has. So maybe not seeing a whole lot of intensity there in that western storm. Whereas this eastern one still kind of maintaining itself, probably not strengthening up too much, but at least able to keep itself going long enough. So 4:30, and just like clockwork, the warning has disappeared. Doesn't necessarily mean that they won't continue it, but they're kind of in that in-between period where they are maybe still deciding whether or not to let it go. And just taking a look, they provided a little tiny update here that I'm going to check out just real fast, so bear with me for just a second. And they do mention that those storms up in the Bloomington and Pontiac area do not appear to be much of a threat. That's kind of what we said too. They're very flat in nature, not much happening with them. And just like that, we were in that in-between period for those storms to either drop the warning or continue it. They have opted to continue it. This storm may be starting to break away from that southeast path, maybe trying to keep a more eastern route. And it looks like they still do have that tornado possible tag on it. So if you are watching us in the Decatur area or some surrounding areas there in Macon County, chances are you probably just got an alert on your phone, whether it be through our app or any other kind of provider that gives you those warnings. Probably just got notified of that severe thunderstorm warning that is in effect for much of the southern part of the county, although it is still several minutes away from actually reaching the county itself and Decatur, of course. We'll see how fast they have that projected to be moving east at 35 miles an hour. So a very slow mover. 35 miles an hour is definitely not much of a pace there at all. So let me punch that into our little tool here and confirm that that storm, it's still got a little southeast-ish movement to it. So we'll just kind of veer this direction. Maybe it'll kind of miss the Decatur area based on this projection. But if it's going 35 miles an hour, those are some of the spots that may have to look out for it here as we move ahead in time. So Mount Auburn, obviously right overhead right now. Got a place like Osborneville that may be there in the next 6 or 7 minutes. Booty at about 4:51, Macon closer to the 5 o'clock hour. So you get plenty of time to still prepare for these. But if you get the warning on your phone, that is, of course, your cue to kind of prepare, bring things inside, and be ready to ride out a storm. No matter how intense it is, any storm that has a severe thunderstorm warning, of course, is a sign for you to kind of slow things down and head on inside and make sure that you are keeping shelter from what is on the way. Got a comment here in the chat. Football games in Tuscola right now. Are we good? It's gotten very dark. So the Tuscola area looks good. Chances are you're looking off to the west, and you can kind of tell the stormy sky out that direction. There is nothing imminently threatening that area. Again, the Decatur area has a severe thunderstorm warning on it, and they still may be 25 minutes away from actually seeing action. So if you're anywhere kind of east of this mark, not a whole lot to worry about in the immediate future. Maybe that storm holds itself together and makes it out there to Tuscola at some point, but that may be another couple hours here still before that happens based on how slowly these storms are moving. So not too much concern there. If you don't have a warning on you, there's really not a whole lot that you need to do to prepare for anything, because it's going to take a long time for the storms to get there. And we'll, of course, track that as we get closer and closer to make sure that you are able to stay on top of things. I'm going to go over to my kind of weather center here real quick and just check and make sure if I've got some access to some of my stuff again here real quick, just so I can kind of keep better track of what's going on. So give me just a moment. I'll keep talking over radar here, but that's where those storms are right now. And we'll continue to monitor how they track here over the next hopefully just a couple hours. Hopefully these don't linger too long into the night tonight. But it is possible that we just have showers and storms in general, even if they are below severe limits. So we have been on for about 30 minutes now, and not much has changed with what we are tracking and watching. We have still got 2 severe thunderstorm warnings for storms that are kind of split apart. And just as I say that, they actually removed the warning there on that one in the Chatham area. So talked about the fact that there's not a whole lot of lightning on that storm. I'll even pop it up again there, just kind of reinforce that point. That indicates that a storm definitely isn't strengthening and potentially could be weakening if you're not seeing a whole lot of uptick there in that lightning. So that is likely the reason, among other reasons. Of course, the storm itself is weak, not just talking about lightning for it, but that storm no longer a concern there as far as severe weather goes. Maybe still some gusty bouts of wind in there and a little bit of hail, but that is not really anything that we are going to be too concerned with. So now down to just one warning. That one is slowly moving out of the Sangamon County area and into parts of far northern Christian County, eventually into Macon County, as we see places like Illiopolis maybe feeling the storm right now, Mount Auburn in the path of it here if they're not feeling it just yet. Harristown, Booty, and Decatur eventually on its way your direction. Right now, still just warned for 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, quarter-size hail. There is that tornado possible tag, but we'll check in on that here right now. And we will see, again, there's not a whole lot that's indicating there's much in the way of a tight rotation happening. But that is something that we'll continue to keep an eye out for and see if anything changes with that. So we'll see if they decide to kind of move around the way that warning is listed at any point. Again, not saying that there's no concern for any sort of rotation or tornadic development with this storm. Just doesn't appear that there's anything imminent here with it, at least for the moment. So that is something to continue to follow. But the overall picture here, again, if you're just now hopping on the stream, we will back things out for you and just kind of show you the entire area. About 90% of you not seeing any storm activity right now. I want to reiterate that a lot of you don't have a whole lot to worry about here. I could take plenty of time listing every single town that doesn't have to worry about anything. But effectively, these storms right here, and I'll bring myself back up because I realize I'm no longer showing myself. These storms right here in between Springfield and Decatur area are the only storms in the area that are severe warned, I should say. There are a few up there kind of closer to the Pontiac area that maybe are starting to tick up just a little bit. I'll get to that in just a moment. But for all places south of I-74, if you're not near these storms, there's not a whole lot to worry about because even a place like Decatur, which is in the warning, still has about 20 minutes of preparation time. So if you're in a place like Taylorville, you might get some rain. You might get a little thunderstorm activity. Doesn't look like anything out of control. But a place like Shelbyville, no imminent threat right now. Mattoon, Charleston, Champaign, Danville, no threat at all here for the next hour at least, and probably not a huge threat here throughout the night tonight. And that goes for a place like Effingham as well. Just watching this storm, maybe any storms that can develop north and east of that along this line. But again, just not something that is jumping off the page. You don't expect rapid storm development on a day like today. You expect a few of these storms kind of pop up and gradually strengthen a little bit. So there's going to be no surprises where you have a tiny little blip on the radar and then 15 minutes later, it's this massive supercell. No real threat for that with any of these storms that have popped up. Looking at that current storm, warned for 60-mile-an-hour winds and quarter-size hail. Again, that is moving east at 35 miles an hour, so just kind of slowly trudging its way to the Decatur area. And speaking of Decatur, let's pop up the sky cam out that way. I believe we are looking due west on this camera right now. And we are not seeing a whole lot from that. Let me angle it just a little bit to the south to see if there's any kind of detail in the storms, and there really isn't. So just kind of a flat, dark-looking sky out to your west, but nothing we can really make out from that camera, at least at this point in time. It is now 4:38 on this Sunday evening. And again, just kind of hopping on here for as long as these storms have the tornado possible tag on them. That, of course, is enough for us to pay attention to it and make sure that things don't pulse up very quickly and lead to any sort of tornado warning at some point. But again, not really too much of a concern with us here right now. The only thing that we're really tracking is the fact that, again, these storms are obviously severe warned, but they've got that tornado possible tag on them. We'll jump in and look at velocity again, but again, there is some of that broad rotation, some of those contrasting colors, but there's nothing imminently threatening. So we'll continue to keep tabs on that. Always sometimes feel like I'm repeating myself with some of these severe weather setups sometimes, but definitely in this case, because when there's setups that have 2 or 3 storms, you can kind of bounce back and forth between those. This one really isn't out of control right now, But of course, with that tag on it, want to pay attention to it. While we've got time, while things look to be somewhat under control out that direction, I want to look up to the north and see what's happening with these storms. Kind of just a broad, flat line that has popped up there. We'll even throw on lightning up there towards the Livingston County area. Not a whole lot of lightning, not a whole lot of energy within those storms. That doesn't mean you're not feeling some impacts from it. In fact, we've got a camera right there in Pontiac that we can look at, and we can see for ourselves what's happening up there. We'll let that load here for just a moment. Again, a little bit of a storm moving through town there right now, but doesn't look like anything too wild happening in the area just yet. But you're definitely starting to move things indoors. If you were outside enjoying your day at one point, I just out of pure curiosity here, don't want to get too sidetracked, but I just want to look at some other sky cams to see what it looks like outside in some spots. Champaign, definitely a little on the cloudier side of things now. We take a peek at a place like Effingham. We'll see what's happening there. And again, you've got a nice kind of sunnyish sky that direction as well. So lots of places are probably unaffected here by what's happening. But as long as there is a tornado possible tag, we're at least going to kind of keep things around. But obviously, based on the way that we are kind of talking about this, not a huge level of concern. These storms look a little weak. There's just not a whole lot of organization to them that suggests that there is a big concern with them. Even kind of tossing on your lightning, we're keeping that up a little bit, but not the most impressive display that we have ever seen. Yeah, the Decatur area might get this severe caliber storm within the next 15 to 20 minutes or so. But even then, this is pretty standard stuff. We get this in the spring and summertime all the time, these little pop-up storms and these storms along cold fronts that can bring 60-mile-an-hour winds, quarter-size hail. Not to discount that because you want to be inside during that. But if you are inside, shouldn't end up being too much of a problem there for many of us. And effectively, at this point, folks, I'll just be upfront about it. I think as long once they drop this tornado possible tag, we'll, of course, continue to pay attention to it. But I don't see too much reason to continue coverage as long as the stuff that we're seeing here is a pretty standard severe weather caliber stuff. Again, we've got our WCIA 3 news at 5:30, so we've got that happening here within the next hour or so, assuming that the golf tournament is staying on schedule the way it currently looks to be right now. I'm not the biggest golf guy in the world, so I'm not always sure to track how fast those matches or tournaments are moving along, but keep an eye on it there in the corner. Shouldn't interrupt our newscast, but in the event that it does, again, that'll kind of push things back into late. But long way of saying within the next hour, we'll have a newscast. We'll keep tracking these storms, not like we'll leave you in the dark or anything like that, but just not seeing a whole lot of support for any kind of imminent concern. As far as a tornado potential goes, of course, there is severe weather potential, lightning, 60-mile-an-hour winds, maybe quarter-size hail. But aside from that, not a whole lot is taking place here in the area. Since there's not a ton happening right now, and we're just kind of watching to see how those warnings play out, I just want to walk folks through the week ahead here just a little bit to kind of give you a little bit of what am I trying to say here? A little bit of encouragement that we're not going to have to deal with, this weird stuff, the cloudy skies, the storm, stuff like that. Just feels like we haven't had very many nice days here lately. Temperatures are going to rise here very quickly as we get onto the new week because sunshine emerges. So going to feel a little summer-like in the middle of the week. 86 on Wednesday, 87 on Thursday, maybe the first couple of days of the year to really hop in the pool and make it feel like you actually belong there. One thing I do want to mention before I get back to severe weather coverage here is we're not entirely done with that wildfire smoke. I know that's kind of an annoying thing that we keep bringing up and talking about. Kind of had a hit to our air quality earlier this weekend and even into the end of last week where that smoke got close to the surface. It's kind of clearing out right now, but there might be a new wave heading in at some point, maybe a very thin plume, but a very kind of thick plume as well, if that makes sense. Thin as far as aerial coverage, thick as far as the density as you go up in the atmosphere. So maybe something that we'll have to contend with again here. That looks pretty ugly on Tuesday, especially. Maybe some smoke out there in the sky tomorrow, but particularly Tuesday could be another bit of a messy smoke situation. Again, that has nothing to do with severe weather, but just kind of continues on with our points about we just haven't had a whole lot of normal weather here lately, from dust storms to wildfire smoke affecting our air quality. We had an earthquake not too long ago. We've had some storms in between, just cloudy, dreary days. Doesn't feel like it's been summer just yet here for many of us. Does not feel that way at all. Last few summers have been pretty brutal as far as the heat goes. And I know no one's rushing to get the heat back anytime soon, but hey, there's a lot of folks that enjoy summer and want to get out there. This one's definitely been an unusual start to summer, just with all the odd things that are happening. So just wanted to update you on what's happening here later on this coming week. The storm, not all that impressive at the moment. It looks pretty flat. Looks like it's broken up here a little bit. And that was always kind of the thought with these storms. They kind of move into an environment that maybe wasn't going to be super supportive of keeping storms as intense as they could be at times for very long. But of course, continuing that severe thunderstorm warning into the Macon County area here within the next about 10 minutes or so is when we could start seeing that officially move on into the county as far as the core of that storm is concerned. But aside from that, again, not a whole lot happening right now. There's some storm activity that has flared up a little bit in the McLean and Livingston County areas. That one kind of looks like not necessarily training on itself, but it's kind of developing over similar spots there, all the way from Pontiac all the way down to maybe Hudson or so into the Lexington area. So maybe see some brief flood concern depending on how slowly / quickly those storms can move on through. But I don't think there's a whole lot happening within those storms other than that. Again, not a whole lot of lightning with them. And the velocity shows, get it back here to Chicago radar, shows, yeah, there might be some strong winds in there, but there's not really any signs of rotation, at least for now. And the atmosphere up that direction definitely doesn't suggest that there would be a whole lot of rotation within some of those storms. You may be getting, depending on what app you have, you may be getting some notifications up that direction of a special weather statement that's saying a strong storm could impact your area. That's basically just like the step below a severe thunderstorm warning. So not enough to really suggest that you need to, what am I trying to say here? Not necessarily the worst of the storm you could see, but it's still strong. It's still right there on that level. You still want to be indoors for stuff like that, but it's just not likely to really bring too many impacts. It may be a little windy, may blow down a few twigs or some tiny little branches, but it's not going to do anything aside from that. And there's a reason why those are a step below the severe thunderstorm warnings that we have here. This one, again, just does not have a whole lot of shape to it, does not have a whole lot of organization. As we look inside on our velocity projection here, we can go back and see the reflectivity. Again, there's maybe a little clearing in here, a little bit of a notch, so to speak, trying to form, but definitely not anything that suggests imminent activity. Just a little bit of that broad rotation in there, maybe right over the Blue Mound area. As far as any kind of imminent tornado threat, very low at this moment. And if it starts to trend up, we'll be able to see it very slowly, I think. These storms are definitely not in any hurry to strengthen or weaken, it seems. We'll pop back in on the Decatur camera and see what's happening that direction. We'll also peek here at the National Weather Service chat to make sure we're not missing anything that they have been saying. And I believe they're talking, yes, okay, they said circulation from earlier has been non-existent as the storm has gotten further away from Springfield, kind of like what we've been saying. We think the tornado threat is low at this time. So kind of along the same thought process there, they may go ahead and decide to continue that warning. I just realized I got the Effingham camera up here while I'm talking about the Decatur area. They may decide to keep that tag on that warning for as long as it lasts, which is until 5 p.m., but I really don't see too much happening there with that storm. We'll kind of just babysit things and keep an eye on it, but there's really nothing that screams that this storm is going to pick up in intensity or get a whole lot worse, which is why we hopped on. Anytime there's a tornado possible tag on a storm that's heading into the Springfield or Decatur area, that is certainly more than enough to get us to hop on these streams and make sure that folks are accounted for and taken care of. But these storms do not look like at this point in time that they will amount to too much. And just kind of backing out here because I'm seeing a couple more comments pop up in the chat. If you are not in the Decatur area, if you are not in the Pontiac area, it's really not a whole lot to worry about right now. You don't have to worry about anything imminently anyway. We'll see a couple of these pop-up storms kind of linger around through the evening. But the main reason we're here on the stream was because of some tornado potential for a brief moment that looks like it's kind of come and gone. Not to say that it won't come back at some point, but definitely a very low level of concern across the area, mainly because 90% of you are seeing no storms right now. So the Mattoon-Charleston area doesn't have to worry about anything. Champaign, Urbana doesn't have to worry about anything. Right now is the key word, though. There could be a storm later on in the evening, but this is a very low-risk day here today, so don't want to get too many alarm bells sounded there. Even with this one, that one warning that's keeping us around looks pretty flat, looks a little weak here at this point in time. We'll even look at the lightning because we've said before that's a good indicator of how strong a storm is. And the frequency of the lightning has definitely come down here within the last 15 or 20 minutes. So if I had to guess, I'd say almost definitely the tornado possible tag will disappear at 5 o'clock. We'll see if that warning continues. Even in the event that it does, probably going to wrap things up here within the next 10 minutes just because this is not all that threatening. And of course, we got to get ready for our newscast at 5:30 p.m. So if anything, it'd just be a little bit of a break here to let us get our show assembled and kind of get you ready for the rest of the week, which if you were here about 5 or 10 minutes ago, you saw not a whole lot happening here in the upcoming week, maybe some wildfire smoke or something like that, but not a whole lot of this to deal with over the next 5 days or so. So we're in pretty good shape as far as that is concerned. And another kind of broad check of your radar picture. That stuff's building up in Pontiac. There might be some, I'd say Pontiac in the Livingston County area. There may be a decent chance for a little bit of flooding up that way, kind of the Pontiac and out there near Sonneman as well. Just kind of in that broad region where you see that storm has kind of settled. It's not really moving with a whole lot of pace, and there's some building up of storms over the same spot that you saw some rain at one point. So I think the flood concerns, probably the biggest thing with that. There is a little bit of strong winds in that, but obviously still does not have a severe thunderstorm warning on it. So it's still below that threshold. That doesn't mean that you can't have some problems in the way of some rain with it as well. So don't want to ignore the storms up that direction. But it's still not too concerning out that way as well. And honestly, neither is this one, but it's got that one little core there, kind of getting ready to move on into the Booty area, maybe just a little south of that and into Macon as well. But this warning is actually set to expire at 5:15, so that's my mistake, not set to expire at 5 o'clock. But again, not a ton of concern here with this storm. Still has that tornado possible tag. That was likely from when it was in the Springfield area earlier, had a little bit of rotation on it, but definitely not something that is too concerning. So probably not going to stick around here all the way to 5:15 just because I think that's maybe just a little overboard here for us. But we want to at least track things here for the next couple of minutes as this moves just south of Decatur into the Macon area, just so those folks are on top of things out that direction and that nothing catches them by surprise. Let's move our Decatur camera a little to the south and see what it can see. Looking due west right now, and obviously getting a little bit of that rain in the picture, but let's angle it more to the south. And again, you can kind of see, once we get it turned around here, you can kind of see the leading edge of the storm out that direction. Still some clear skies out ahead of it, or at least you're not seeing that storm on the south end of the county just yet, but it is on its way soon. So we'll pop back up our radar here and see what there is to see there. Again, just kind of one little core of this storm right now. Anyone immediately in front of that is probably going to feel some strong winds, maybe a little bit of tiny hail along that path. So that includes maybe Booty, Elwyn, Macon, eventually maybe Mount Zion. If it keeps its intensity that far, not entirely certain if it will do that. And we look at the velocity as we get an update there on our scans. Again, just not a whole lot there that suggests that it is going to be much of a problem as far as any kind of tornado threat is concerned. So we'll go to about 5 o'clock. We'll give this another 6 minutes or so. If not much else changes, even if that warning's still out there, I think we'll just kind of wrap things up just because it's one storm, not a very impressive storm, and that's the only spot in the area that has to worry too much about it. But definitely don't want to leave some people hanging as this storm is starting to move on in. And of course, if you folks are seeing anything where you are, feel free to let us know. But chances are you're not seeing anything where you are, just because the basic probability of that is very low based on the coverage of storms here. But we are seeing some storms here in the Macon County area. We're seeing a few up there in the Livingston and far northern McLean County area. I am curious to see what our Pontiac camera still shows, if we're seeing much that way. It's all kind of south of there, but we'll see what kind of view we can get. If there's anything popping up there. And yeah, I think we're not really getting impacted by anything right there in Pontiac, but you can still see some pretty rugged clouds. Maybe that storm still kind of glancing by on the south end of town. I think the main threat with those storms up there is, again, the flood potential as that rain kind of piles on itself and brings impacts to the same area over and over. And let me just double check here, check your rainfall totals over the last hour. And yeah, in the last 1 hour, but it's probably been less than an hour since those storms have been there, you've got rainfall total of just under an inch, so basically an inch per hour, which is enough there to kind of puddle up the water very quickly in some of those spots. So out there near Gridley, out there near Pike, you're seeing that rain already over an inch from just a pretty thin line of storms. So very lucky to, or unlucky, depending on your view of it, to actually get hit by those storms. But if you are, you're getting a pretty decent drink of water out of it. Storm likely to miss the Decatur area. In fact, they have trimmed down that warning to just include a very small portion of the southern half of the county. That does still include places like Booty, Macon, and Mount Zion. But again, that core is so small right now that it is not really too concerning. But one thing of note, you still have a little lightning well out ahead of some of these storms. So that's why it's important when you see dark skies, when you hear some thunder, just kind of get indoors anyway. Of course, if it's not right on top of you, you don't feel the urgency as much. But this lightning can pop up well out in advance of these storms. So just play it safe, stay inside for a little bit. This storm is not large enough to where it's going to keep you inside for hours and hours. Maybe for an hour at the very most, and then you can go back outside to doing what you were doing. But if you were maybe considering firing up the grill for supper this evening, might want to just either delay that or just kind of think of some other plans. For the moment, in the next hour, you should be in pretty good shape in some of those spots. And we are going to check the National Weather Service chat, which does not have anything too terribly new in what they are looking at. But yeah, these are one of those days where if things kind of pop up, they're worth watching for a little bit. But we've kind of passed that point in time, I think, where that tornado threat almost completely zero here. That doesn't mean the severe threat's all the way down. But certainly on that storm in Macon County, there's not a whole lot to watch with it. Up here to the north, though, maybe some strong gusts within this little line of storms. More than anything, I just think that the lightning and the rain are probably going to be the two bigger concerns with that storm, kind of line of storms up there closer to Livingston County into parts of far northern McLean and Ford counties as well. So we will be watching out for that. All right, it's just kind of one last thing here to kind of wrap up, because like I said, this storm definitely not too much of a concern here for many of us. We're watching southern Macon County, places like Booty, Macon, and into Mount Zion. We are going to see some severe thunderstorm caliber impacts, but that includes maybe just 60-mile-an-hour gusts, maybe quarter-size hail. Still not seeing a whole lot as far as any kind of hail concern goes. And you look at velocity, just kind of messy. Not a whole lot of organization to it. You can't really see much in the way of rotation. So that is why, effectively, I think I'm going to pretty much wrap things up here with our coverage. Again, we'll watch. We'll continue to pay attention to it. But as it sits right now, there is not a whole lot that is concerning me with this particular storm or those storms up to the north. Just very basic spring/summertime stuff that we are seeing here. So we will give you one last look at your radar here, and we will kind of sign things off. Again, we have our newscast at 5:30. We will continue to track any storms that are out there in the area during that newscast, but not expecting a whole lot more to pop in throughout the night. Maybe these storms kind of stay going for a little while, but that would be pretty much the only thing we're watching for. There could be maybe another redeveloping line later on in the evening, but that looks to kind of be sub-severe in nature. So just wanted to hop on while those storms had that tornado possible tag on them. Even though that one still does, looks like things have kind of come and gone as far as that goes. So I'm not going to be too concerned with that for any longer. So if you jumped in to watch our coverage here this afternoon, we'll continue to keep track of things. But again, level of concern very low with this round as it was going into the day. But they had that one storm near Springfield kind of pulse up for just a moment. So we wanted to make sure that we could cover for the folks that were in that area as it moved on through. but no longer looking like too much is going to go down. If it does, if anything changes, we'll be right back on here. But if not, and things kind of trend the way they currently are, we'll probably see you again on TV on CBS there on Channel 3 at 5:30. So with that being said, thanks for tuning in and trusting us with your coverage here on this Sunday afternoon. I'm meteorologist Seth Bohnhoff. We'll continue to keep an eye on things. But until then, wish you a good rest of your evening and stay safe and definitely